You're listening to the Dennis Prager Show. My guest is Christopher Hitchens, and his latest book, best-selling, is God is Not Great, How Religion Poisons Everything. And I asked you before, and I don't recall if we got a chance to discuss this part of your thesis. If you had written a critique of religion, I probably could have subscribed to much of what you wrote. It's the absolutism, as I gave the example with the Scientologists who see no good in psychiatry. You see religion as poisoning everything. And it's just, I mean, the abolitionist movement in the United States against slavery was overwhelmingly religious Christians. It obviously didn't poison that.
Well, I would say two things to that. First, the imposition of slavery was overwhelmingly Christian.
Yeah, but it was overwhelmingly...
And the maintenance of it. So if some Christians belatedly decided against the scriptural warrant, which does exist, there is a scriptural warrant for slavery, then good for them. But isn't because of their religion. The founders of the American Anti-Slavery Society, by the way, for the most part, were not believers.
Oh no! Well, no. Even the New York Review of Books, which is left of center and secular in its orientation, acknowledged in a recent article that it was overwhelmingly a religious movement, and that remains the case.
By the end, it was. William Lloyd Garrison, for example.
Yeah, but wait.
Wait. But here's.
Go ahead.
Let's be careful if you're going to claim this, because William Lloyd Garrison, until he became a much more secular person and read the writings of Thomas Paine and others against slavery, was the man who said, yes, we must destroy the United States Constitution and the Union, because that's what the book of Isaiah says. We've made a covenant with death. We are in agreement with hell. He was the one who wanted to secede before the Confederates did. He would have destroyed the Union on the proposition because he was a religious fanatic. It's just as well that Garrison changed his mind.
Yeah, but
it says nothing to the credit of Christianity that, having imposed and justified slavery for so long, that some of its adherents...
I'll tell you why it justifies it, and I'm not a Christian. I'll tell you why it speaks well for at least that aspect of Christianity, and that is that slavery was universal. It has nothing to do with Christians. It specifically, slavery is about as universal a human institution as sex.
That's certainly true.
Okay, then you can't blame Christianity for something that everybody did.
Nor can you credit abolition for it, sir.
Why not?
Because, as I say, it's contingent. You could be... It doesn't derive from Christianity. A Christian may do these things, just as an atheist may be a slaveholder. But in the British Empire and in these United States, the justification for slavery was biblical.
Partially biblical, and particularly...
biblical.
Well, but that...
Just as it is
fine.
In all surviving cases of which I'm aware where slavery persists, is justified from the Quran, which does indeed justify it.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean there would be no slavery without religion.
Yeah, but the fact that look here we have to then be intellectually honest.
Well, that
and
would
you,
be,
wait.
We both agree to that.
No, I agree that there were people who used the Bible to justify slavery, but I hope that if I had lived then, I would have said, excuse me, if nothing else, what do you do with the law in the Bible, the Old Testament, that you cannot return a slave to its owner? That you cannot kidnap people, that's a capital offense to kidnap people. That alone would have rendered African slavery, the African slave trade, unbiblical.
No, it's a pity that the Christians didn't notice that at the time.
You're right. The failure of religious people is not this...
But there are many, many other justifications for slavery throughout the Old Testament, including all the details of the ways in which you may do it.
No, all the ways... Yes, I happen to teach...
It's ritualized, it's institutionalized in the Old Testament.
Well, as it happens, I've taught that from the Hebrew, and what it is bonded indemniture. It has nothing in common with the African slave trade. It was within Israel overwhelmingly, and it was if I owed you money and couldn't pay you back because I stole from you or whatever, then I worked for you for 6 years, and then I was sent free, and I had to be sent free with all sorts of goods, and if you mistreated me, I was free, and so on.
Been bored through with an all.
No, that's only if I asked to stay on more. It was a statement of look.
Yeah, but
kids put holes in their ears today for fun.
Please don't run away with the idea that I would be impressed whether the Bible was in favor of it or not. I mean,
yeah. All right, let's go to other. Let me ask you a question. You say that it is unnecessary, and I believe that it is necessary having a God-based code. So let me ask you, how do you view, on purely rational grounds, because that's what you use to derive your morality, is that correct?
Not purely rational, no, but I mean, not
Okay, so tell me.
not allowing anything to outrage reason.
Okay, so how do you, and this is not a challenge, I am truly curious, how do you arrive at a view of the human fetus's worth?
How do I? Personally?
Yes, you personally.
Well, I believe that the findings of embryology and also our more basic moral promptings confirm that the concept unborn child is a real one. I've always thought that.
And I salute you for that. Tell me then why it is overwhelmingly that those who are secular regard the human fetus as essentially a tissue, and it is the religious who invest it with value.
Very good question. I mean, I debated in the book. I say that there was a time when things were even worse, when one was able to hear feminists saying, for instance, that the fetus was no more than an appendix, or even, I've heard this said too, a tumor, a growth on the woman's body, and no one's business but hers. Thus, no problem, for example, with a third trimester or ninth month termination.
So why doesn't that reflect on secularism?
You do not fortunately hear that anymore. Well, I'll tell you why, because the argument from the other end of the case was also fanatical and dogmatic, and to some extent still is. It says that, for example, that an IUD, an intrauterine device, because it prevents the egg from clinging to the wall, is a murder weapon, and that an ectopic pregnancy is a human life, and it talks about ensoulment and other nonsensical theological things of this kind, and also says, for a long time, the same people who were advocating this very much condemned contraception and said, as Mother Teresa did, that that was morally equivalent to abortion. In other words, that contraception was murder too. So in the face of this hysterical nonsense, a lot of feminists took up very extreme self-determination positions of their own.
Right, but that there is nonsense in religious life, I am the first to acknowledge, and I am more pained by it than you because I am religious. It doesn't, you don't pay a price for religious idiocy, I do. Okay,
I wish I didn't, but I mean, they wouldn't leave me alone.
All right, well, all right, be that as it may. I just need to get your answer, though, when you speak about religious people having awful moral views, and now you acknowledge, though, that this is overwhelmingly on the secular side, the dismissal of the worth of the human fetus. Why should I not conclude that secularism poisons everything, just as you believe religion poisons everything?
Well, you just have a much harder job of it, is all. I mean, because the secular view isn't any longer the fanatical one about abortion. It's one of the few cases I know of, actually, where an argument between two opposed positions has actually produced something like a moral compromise.
All right, then I will give you an argument where secularism does poison everything, looking at Western Europe today, and I think I know some of your values, and I'm very curious to get your answer. Christopher Hitchens, his book, God is Not Great. I'm Dennis Prager.